When should you stop saving for your own retirement? Stay with me. I want to first say that this video is not financial advice. And before you make the decision to stop saving for your retirement, you really should speak to a certified financial planner to verify that all your information is accurate and that you are on path to meet your financial goals in retirement. Now, I work as a financial advisor and wealth manager, and I do a lot of retirement planning. And occasionally, I come across a person who is in maybe their 40s or 50s, and it really doesn't make sense for them to save for their retirement anymore. Now, this is not the norm. This is exceptionally rare that I do encounter people in this situation, but I occasionally do encounter them, and I often have to coach them through throttling back on saving for retirement. What are some of the signs that I see that a person is saving too much for retirement and they need to pull back? First, there are some indicators that you are on the right path in saving for retirement, and I want to go through those because they're quite important. First things first, you notice that the growth on your money, the annual growth on your money in retirement account, is far exceeding whatever you are putting in each year. For example, I was looking over my own retirement accounts and I noticed for 2024, one of my retirement accounts grew by $54,000. Now, I didn't put in $54,000 for 2024, not anywhere close. But what has happened is I've been saving so much for so long, my account has reached a tipping point, and the annual growth on my account is far exceeding anything that I could put in. That's a very good sign. That is supposed to be happening. It doesn't happen in year one, doesn't happen in year two. It's probably not going to happen in the first years of your retirement savings. It generally happens somewhere around year 15 to year 20, but it is very rewarding because for a long time I was putting in far more money than I was seeing returns on my portfolio, and it's only recently flipped. It's very rewarding to see that equation flip and to see that the performance on the account is exceeding the amount of money I'm putting in every year. So look for that sign. The next thing that I want to point out is really important. For people with children or people with legacy consideration, retirement accounts, and I'm taking Roth off the table for a moment, but traditional retirement accounts do not make good vehicles of inheritance. They're actually pretty terrible vehicles of inheritance because of taxation reasons. And I always reiterate that to my client at several points. If they have 401ks or IRAs with extremely large balances and they are traditional and they have children next generation, I always tell them, please enjoy that money now. You do not want to give these accounts to the children, or we need to come up with a strategy to Rothize a lot of this money at the first spouse's death or at some point in the future. So you don't want to overshoot the amount that you are saving in a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA account. It makes a terrible vehicle of inheritance. Your kids really don't want them and shouldn't have them, and you need to spend that money in your lifetime. I also just want to quickly talk through retirement arc and the go-go years versus the no-go years. The go-go years, let's say you retire at 65. And from age 65 to 75, you're in perfect health. You can dine out, you can travel, you can visit fancy exotic places, spend time with friends and family because your health and your mobility is not really compromised. Now, for most Americans around the age of 75 to 80, things start to shift up. Mobility may become compromised. You start moving a little bit slower. Maybe you don't want to get on that 18-hour flight to Timbuktu. It becomes too much of a physical and mental toll on your health to do that much activity, and you start pulling back. And I can see it in people's spending patterns. There's a buildup of spending patterns in the early part of retirement, and then there's a fall off, and then there's another peak for long-term care. So a good financial advisor will talk to you about the life cycle of retirement, the go-go versus the no-go years, and help you plan how you can spend your money to optimize that experience. You don't want to penny pinch between 65 to 75 and build up your money only to realize you don't have the health and vigor to really get out in your late 70s and early 80s to start enjoying it. That's a misfire on the retirement planning part. So remember, go-go, no-go years, very important in retirement planning and very important in spending plans. The next thing I want to say is that some people are expert accumulators on money. They are great with savings, they are great with investing, but they are just absolutely terrible with spending. They completely break out into a sweat when it comes to spending that money down. I myself, I'm a great accumulator. You can tell me to save, you can tell me to invest. I will totally do it and I not have a problem saving or investing money. When it comes time to spend it down, I have concerns. This is a big problem in retirement because it's like pulling teeth to convince some people to spend their money. And I always tell people, look, if you don't spend and enjoy your money, someone else surely will. And I have seen clients who were very diligent savers and investors die maybe at a relatively young age or maybe not so young, and then some relative, some distant relative got their money and basically blew through it in a couple of years. And I think what a pity, what a shame. That person would be rolling over in their grave if they knew this cousin they didn't even like wasted a lot of their money on some fancy car that's going to be in a junkyard in 10 years time. So if you are a hyper accumulator, if you are a hyper investor like myself, you really have to switch up that mindset to say, look, if I don't enjoy my money, someone else sure will. And it may not even be someone I know or like. So get out there and make a plan for spending and enjoying your money in retirement. I also really understand that I'm relatively young. I'm in my mid 40s. And at a certain point in all of our lives, we reach a point where money versus time. And it's when do you pull a plug on a successful career versus when do you actually retire? There are certain careers where age is a huge advantage. And I myself, as a wealth manager, financial advisor, age is actually a huge advantage. The average age in this field is in the 50s. And so I can ideally work until my late 60s, even 70s. I've run across financial advisors who are 80 and still working every single day. I love my job. I have a great deal of latitude and I love my clients. I feel personally responsible for helping each and every client reach their financial goals, no matter how far that goal is out and into the future. For people like me, and I know that not all Americans are people like me, most Americans can't wait to get to the door of retirement and leave working behind. I can ideally work until my early 70s, but I also realize that eventually at some point in my life is going to become an equation of money versus time. Yes, I can keep working, and at that point, working isn't even about the money, it's about the enjoyment of the work, it's about adding to the field of financial advising, wealth managing, and serving clients that I really dearly care about, or I can go spend more time. It's always very healthy to have something that you are retiring into versus something you are running away from in retirement. I need to find a hobby, I need to find a passion, I need to find something that I really want to do that I can step into in retirement and leave the world of financial advising behind. But I also understand just at some point in life, it's going to become an equation of savings versus time. And occasionally with clients, I see people who have more than enough money for retirement. They're going to be perfectly fine, but they just keep working. In a situation like that, if you have more than enough money to retire, but you just want to keep working, it really doesn't make sense to continue saving for retirement. You're putting yourself in a bind by continuing to save for retirement. So for those people who are like in their late 60s and 70s, they could have retired a decade ago, but they just want to continue working because they love their field. I typically suggest that they don't continue saving for retirement, especially in a taxable account like an IRA or a 401k, because they're not going to be able to spend through that money in their lifetime. And once the next generation receives the accounts, like I said, a traditional IRA, a traditional 401k does not make a good vehicle of inheritance. So let's talk about some times that you should stop saving for retirement. And I want to clarify when I say stop saving for retirement, if your company offers a match, of course you're going to take that match. So if your company matches you at 8%, I'm going to save up to 8%, but I'm not going to save the full $23,500 that I could save for retirement. Some people's incomes are so high that, the 8% is the $23,500. And in that case, you really do want that match money because it is free money. So when I say stop saving for retirement, what I really mean is you stop saving up to the limit and you save only up to the match. So let's say someone is working and their company matches them at 8%, which is about $17,000, you're going to save $17,000 to get that match every single year because you're not going to leave that free money on the table. So one sign that you probably should stop saving for retirement is that you have considerable other invested assets. You have a brokerage account, you have land, you have real estate, you have other investments, other places. It's clear that the majority of your retirement is probably not going to come from retirement accounts. And once again, you could be creating a big taxation problem for yourself by continuing to save, especially in traditional 401s, traditional IRAs. And essentially, at age 73, the federal government is going to require you to take required minimum distributions. And if you're receiving distributions from all of your other accounts, rental income, you're receiving income from the land, you're getting dividends from brokerage accounts, you're getting this and that, you're going to end up paying a lot of that traditional IRA 401k to the government. So if you have considerable investable assets in other locations, you may not need to save as much for retirement, or you may be able to stop saving for retirement. So you have to work with a financial advisor to find out if you're in this situation. But typically people who are in this situation have investable assets of 7 figures or more outside of retirement accounts. The second thing, you have a 7-figure retirement account balance well before the age of 50. If you are in that situation, you really should be speaking with a financial advisor because you may be oversaving for retirement. I have seen a handful of people who are in this situation. Once again, they're just hyper accumulators. They save a lot. They started when they were 20. They were very diligent about it. They like investing and saving and just use their retirement account as the vehicle for doing this. But they're 40 and they have 1.5 million across retirement accounts. They're going to end up with an absolutely staggering amount in their retirement accounts by age 65, age 70, and they may be in a situation where they can't spend through all of that money and they've just created a taxation issue for themselves in retirement. At that point in time, we talk about possibly only saving up to the match. How much of the money is Roth? Should there be a Rothization strategy? What exactly is the strategy for all that money? Because having money just for the sake of money can end up blowing up in their face if 50% of that money lands in the federal government or the state of California because they accumulated too much over their working career and probably should have stopped saving for retirement some time ago. So if you have a 7-figure balance before the age of 50, I think it would be a great idea to check in with a certified financial planner to make sure that you are not over saving for your retirement goals. You're receiving a considerable windfall of assets, or you have received a considerable windfall of assets. Now, when I say you are receiving, I mean it's already in your possession, is already yours. A good example of you don't want to take a possible future inheritance. That's not receiving. You don't know if you're going to receive that inheritance. Anything could happen. The money could be spent. You could be disinherited. Something else could come and take that money away from you. But if the person has deceased and you're going through probate or you're working through the trust, that money, you are receiving that money. Or if you win the lottery, I have had 2 clients who won the lottery. And it's a huge windfall of money. When I say huge windfall, it's usually 7 or 8 figures. You can pretty much stop saving for retirement. Typically, when people are in a huge windfall situation, we keep everything the same at least for 6 months to let the dust settle and to come up with a plan. Many of those people do end up leaving the workforce. I've had a few people who've stayed in their profession simply because they enjoy their professions. But basically, retirement, you're not going to see retirement in the same light anymore. And you can use money from that windfall to sustain the lifestyle that you want. And unless you have a spending problem and you're going to burn through 8 figures, 10 million, 12 million, 15 million, hopefully, you don't really need to save for retirement anymore. If you do continue working, what you would do is just save up to the match and then stop after that. You're in an absolute critical clutch of a situation and you need all your money. Absolute critical clutch of a situation. You're partially disabled, but you're working. Your pay has been slashed. Your company was slashing everybody's pay by 30% for some reason, and you need all your money to basically live. Garnishments, whether rightfully or wrongfully done, I've had clients who dealt with garnishment situations. It may be okay to pull back on saving for retirement for a period of time to clear this situation and to get back on your feet. And when I say for a period of time, anywhere from 6 months to a year, anything above and beyond that really will hurt your retirement goals. So if you face an absolute clutch situation or critical situation that is beyond your control and beyond your circumstance, and you just need every dollar, it may be okay to stop saving for a period of time while you get back on your feet, but don't let this become a forever thing. You need to save for retirement and get back in the saddle as quickly as possible. Another reason to stop saving for retirement, and I mentioned this before, if you are absolutely certain that you can retire now, you have more than enough money, you're basically continuing to work in your career because it is your passion and you enjoy working your career and want to keep yourself active. At that point, you really don't need to save for retirement. And once again, you may just be creating a taxation issue for yourself, especially in times when you have to take required minimum distributions from the accounts. Now, this advice changes if you have access to Roth money. But remember, with Roth money, you're paying taxes on it now, so you don't have to pay taxes on it in the future. At a certain point, it's okay, I'm putting this money into a Roth account. I'm 67. I have more than enough money in a Roth account or a traditional account to sustain me. I could be enjoying that money right now. I could be enjoying that money right now. Maybe I need a new car. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I want to dine out. So you get into this time versus money equation again. And sometimes at some points in life, it really makes sense to have the time and the experience over having a couple of $1,000 more in your Roth account. And like I said, by that time, you put in the full, let's say $30,000 into the Roth account. If you've done your job correctly, your overall account has grown by $300,000. So the money typically in retirement that you put in at the very end, like you're 66, you're retiring at 67, it doesn't have as great as impact as the money you put in at 26. So there you have it. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like, and if you found this information useful, please share and subscribe.